So first of all, just to get to what is this report and what is it not, we are preparing and did this report at the request of Governor Dayton. At the end of your report, you'll see that letter. And that really started with a request by the governor to ask us to assess the risks to the public and any liabilities with the site that is the subject of an agreement between the Vikings and Ramsey County. So this is not a comparison of multiple sites. It is really an attempt to look at one site and see what types of risks or liabilities are there that we should know about as a public before we make an investment in this site. We have also been asked to suggest ways to mitigate risks that are identified, and you'll see those in the report as well. So the report reviewed several items. We looked both at schedule risks and cost risks, the two critical elements of risk in a major project like this. We looked at a number of categories: land transfer and remediation, environmental review and documentation, transportation, utilities, permitting and approvals, and then the financing structure. So we identified several risks in these categories, but the subject of the press conference today and my comments today are really going to be on the major risks, as this is a 200-page report. So just to orient ourselves again to where we are, let's take a look at the site. This is a 430-acre site on the TCAP site. If you are looking at the screen, you'll see that the parcels are really divided into two. There are two parcels. The southern parcel is what we are calling the stadium property, and I'll refer to that as the stadium property. There are 260 acres in that parcel. The northernmost parcel, and you can see up on the screen there with the smaller red area, is called the development property, and there are 170 acres in that parcel. So as we look at this, the dark green represents the Rice Creek North Regional Trail. On the west of this site is I-35W. To the east is the Arden Hills and Army training site. The brown prime tracer area is not a part of the 430-acre stadium proposal, and we have not looked at that in this report. So let's move to the stadium parcel itself. The stadium parcel is where the stadium will be built, obviously, the support facilities for the stadium, the parking, and the circulation and roadways for people to get in and out of the stadium. And these are the general characteristics of this parcel. This parcel will be the parcel that will be transferred by the GSA on behalf of the Army to Ramsey County, that would then be conveyed to a stadium authority and the Vikings. Under the terms of the deal today, the Stadium Authority and the Vikings will enter into a long-term lease agreement for the stadium. The cost of constructing the stadium is the sole responsibility of the Vikings under the current agreement. Let's look at, for a second, at the development parcel. That's the 170 acres. This is a site that will be acquired by the Vikings or an affiliate organization of the Vikings for future development. For example, there could be a mixed-use development on this property. It has not yet been defined as to what that use will be or the timing of that use. That will depend on the market and the economy. We do know that after the initial sale of the land from the GSA to Ramsey County, that the county will immediately sell that parcel to the Vikings or their affiliate. They will then have 8 years under the current agreement to develop that parcel, and should that development not occur, that goes back to Ramsey County. So that's kind of an overview of the current proposal. And so I'm going to identify the funding cost for that proposal as really scenario 1. And you'll see the pie chart up here. That proposed total for the funding of that parcel in the current agreement between the Vikings and Ramsey County is $1.111 billion. You can see that the Ramsey County share of that is $350 million. That's the green on the pie chart. The state of Minnesota share is the $300 million, the blue. The part for the Vikings is the purple. That's kind of cute, I think. And there is a funding gap of $39 million that has not yet been identified as to who is going to pay that. And then there is anticipated, and this is only in the agreement between the Vikings and Ramsey County, $15 million from the sale of the Metrodome. We are not making any judgment about the actual value of that site, the sale of that site. We're just reflecting what's really in the agreement right now between the Vikings and Ramsey County. There are ongoing costs about ongoing discussions between the Sports Facility Commission, the Vikings, and the Ramsey County about that gap amount. We've not analyzed that. We're just really analyzing what's in paper, what's been agreed to, what's public amongst the parties today. So that is what I would call scenario one. That's the current condition, the current financial parameters of the deal. So we are going to talk about three major risks this morning, and our report goes into that in some detail. There is an executive summary, and there are findings that go into more detail in the report, and they summarize other risks. So there are other risks that I'm really not going to cover right now that you can see more as you look at the report. The purpose of the risks we're identifying are really to focus on those that could put in jeopardy the public and private partnership for the stadium. And there are three key risk factors. Cost of delay, an unfunded cost gap, and just additional costs that result from the remediation process. And then the capacity of Ramsey County to produce its share through a sales tax of the amount it is contributing in this agreement. So let's talk about each one of those. Let's talk about the first one, the cost of delay. This land transfer process is land that's now owned by the U.S. Army. It would be acquired by Ramsey County through the GSA. It is a very complex parcel. It's a very complex piece of land. It is the largest Superfund site in the state of Minnesota. So there's a great deal of environmental assessment work that has not yet been completed that needs to be done to identify risks associated with the infrastructure development of that site. The land is contaminated with industrial heavy metals and organic compounds. And it is a complex transfer of land for a variety of reasons. First, the size of the site, the extent of the contamination, the fact that there are two parcels here, one for development of the stadium and one for associated mixed-use development. The Ramsey County and Vikings schedule identifies a 12-month period of time to accomplish that transfer. We think that is unrealistic, and it's much likely that it will take more time than that. The second area I want to talk about with cost of delay is actually just the process that's associated with remediation and what needs to be done there. So we have to take several steps before you can start the remediation process. You have to have a plan approved by the MPCA that approves the remediation process. We don't have that yet, and that is a plan that needs to be done. There is a difference between the cleanup standard for transfer of the property from the Army and GSA to Ramsey County and what is acceptable to them and what is acceptable to the state of Minnesota and the PCA. The PCA level has to be cleaned up to a more stringent level for industrial use in the state rules and laws than it does for the federal transfer of property. So the site may need to be cleaned up more than is currently anticipated and expected, and at least we have to have a remediation plan for the cleanup that is acceptable and approved by the MPC. So the delay costs are both the actual transfer and then the delay associated with identifying the needed remediation for the site and the securing of the local approvals for that. The cost range for remediation in the proposal today between the Vikings and the county is actually at $30 million. We think this is on the low end of the range. We are projecting that land acquisition and remediation costs could range from $23 to $70 million. And this is really a very wide range, and it really stems from the uncertainty that as of today. So this is not a cost to delay this factor. This is actually a factor associated with money that would have to be expended to do the environmental assessment, get the remediation plan approved, and then accomplish the remediation at the site. So these cleanup costs cannot be contained by obtaining insurance. We've found that it's just not available for this project. I know Ramsey County was attempting to find out if there was some cost gap mitigation insurance there, but it is not there. And it puts there is a process that the county could go through to put more of the onus on the cleanup contractor for those costs. That's unknown at that time, but that would be one way of mitigating the cost of cleanup on the site. So the cost of delay on the schedule. The current proposal calls for an opening of the stadium in 2015. We think that is unrealistic. 2016 or 2017 is more realistic. The cost of delay in the schedule, this is just the inflationary cost of delay, we are projecting at approximately $46 million per year. The Vikings themselves have estimated a cost of delay for a one-year delay from $35 to $57 million, and we have just picked a number in the middle of that range at $46 million. So a two-year delay we would, estimate at as much as $92 million. So in the current proposal between the Vikings and the Ramsey County, there still is a gap of $39 million. It's not identified what the source of funding for that will be.